Okay.
So I haven't seen you in, I don't know, like before Christmas, right?
Before Christmas.
And you went through your history. You went through a protocol on your own.
Yep.
Right? Was it homeopathic?
Homeopathic.
And then it was amazing. The first time ever you lost weight, actually, and
Felt
you did
confident.
it twice, right?
I did 2 rounds.
In the second round, you just
Lost it.
bombed it.
Yep.
Self-sabotage, all because it's kind of too easy and you're thinking, oh, you know what, this moment I'll eat and I can always make it up the next few days. Very typical, right?
Very typical.
And you eventually just gained all of your weight back, which was just so hard on you emotionally.
Heartbreaking.
Not only heartbreaking, but almost like you feel like you failed on so many levels.
An intense failure where I thought, here I had gotten to the weight that I have dreamed about. I lived in it for a little while, and then why couldn't I keep it? And so the most intense failure that you'd feel like, what's wrong with me?
Well, the problem is, you know, and we talked about that, the idea that when you lose all this weight, all of a sudden you'll be motivated to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's going to change your life so drastically,
right,
that you'll do everything you can to keep it off. That is somewhat one of the ways the diet industry ploys you into doing it. You'll change everything, and it's so
I totally
enabling.
believed that if I had gotten to that point, I would realize that it was what I had dreamed about, and I would do whatever it took to maintain it.
Because it would make you so happy. Right? Inside. That new weight, that new body would make you intrinsically happy.
Yep.
And wasn't that just a big lie?
It was a lie.
You didn't even know it. You believed it, thought it, and then once people give you all this positive attention, right? You look amazing. Oh my God, I'm so proud of you, right?
Right.
And then to gain that weight back, it's almost like embarrassing.
It was embarrassing. I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to be anywhere because it would be my physical body as the admittance to everybody else I failed again.
Yeah.
And so that was the piece of it. And all the while I knew inside something is bigger. Something's not right. It's not my body. It's not anything else. There's something bigger here. And I didn't know what it was.
So when you drove by and you saw my banner outside,
I saw the mind, body, health, and I thought
an HCG. In the same word.
In the same word. So I knew the HCG worked for me in a way that never before it did. That I had never had success before. So I knew the HCG was a given, and it was a no-brainer for me. Like it was so successful, and I saw it work, and I believed in the system. But what really caught my eye was the mind. And because nowhere before in every weight loss thing that I had tried was the mind associated with it.
It's all your body and the food and them. And they want to take credit for whatever happens.
And it was one of those eye-opening things that when I was sitting in that failure and I saw the mind piece associated with HCG, I just had this opening kind of like, oh, maybe that's where this is stemming from. Something is wrong within me and in my head that food, that I have some sort of overeating or some sort of something. I didn't want to admit an eating disorder.
Now that you've been through a round, for the most part, of the method with me,
mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you have more clarity as to why?
Yes. I have, like I said to you just a bit ago, I've been living in an awareness state right now where I have never been before, and it's tripping me up because I'm having to admit it to somebody who's usually so in control of things, to admit that I am out of control when the food is involved.
Can I pause you real quick?
Yeah.
It is humbling. But the other part is when you feel out of control with food, it's actually your way of controlling again on the other side.
Yes.
It's a control of a feeling you don't like.
Right.
You know, like shame or disappointment or guilt. It's usually a negative,
yes.
feeling that you feel a feeling that makes you feel less valuable inside. And so going to food is a way that you actually control those feelings. You're hiding the feeling.
So here's when I say that I'm living in awareness state. I am now, I haven't gotten to the point where I can stop before I overeat. But I am now at the point where I have overeaten. Even like this morning, my son made pancakes. And I was eating it, enjoying it with him. And now after the fact, I'm like, I overate. I know I overate. And it's like I'm kind of deciphering where I was at now in those emotions. And I was nervous about coming today, admitting, feeling like I failed again.
Yeah, but to me, it's not a failure.
Right, it's not.
It's a process of learning. And by being that state of awareness for you is so important.
Yeah.
Because you're conscious. You're actually, you're pulling back and seeing it from a wider perspective, which helps you learn from your behavior. If you're in it and judging that behavior, it's the same shame, fear, and then compensation cycle. So by having kind of an awareness, I cannot tell you how important it is that you do not judge yourself.
Okay.
That you actually can empathize with your decisions, because there is a reasoning behind decisions.
Yeah.
There is a reason.
Yeah.
And that reason does have value. However, it may be coming from an irrational place.
Totally irrational. Because I knew you weren't going to judge me. I knew you were going to be okay with it. And I just had, what it is I'm feeling very vulnerable. And I have to be okay with it.
We have to trust that you're strong enough for whatever it is.
Right. And more importantly, I think about the positive of where I'm at right now mentally is, yes, I've recognized and put a definition to what I was feeling this morning. Granted, it was after the fact, but now I have a desire to want to catch it before I act.
You've just made a huge step. I just want you to know you're on your way. This is not my process, it's yours. So you can't, I have no expectation besides your own awakening. And it's yours, it's not mine.
Yeah.
And by pulling back, can you feel that you're on your way?
I can. It's frustrating.
Why?
What's frustrating about it is I want to be able to stop it before it happens.
Well, the fact that you just said that, what does that tell you?
I'll get there.
Yeah, you're on your way. The fact that you have that desire, because to me the desire is humongous. Do you know how many people, I'm going to use smoking cigarettes, okay? Have you ever smoked cigarettes?
No.
Okay, you've never quit it like a habit?
Mm-mm.
Okay, this is the first habit that you're quitting, and it's emotional. Most people who have addiction will tell you that the physical addiction is the easy part. Letting go of a narcotic, cigarettes, alcohol, for me the exercise addiction and addiction to controlling my body, that was easy. You know what was the hardest part?
Is the mental part.
The emotional part, letting go emotionally, because that leaves you feeling weak and vulnerable. And you have to be okay with it.
Do you know what's interesting is I get what you're saying, and I have a desire to want to learn how to stop before I overeat, before I binge. Mm-hmm. But so I'm saying that desire is there, mm-hmm. but all the while that vulnerability that I'm feeling right now is a feeling of weakness, like why can't I do it? So on top of that desire, I've built another layer, which I'm recognizing of where I feel a little bit like I'm feeling like, okay, Christy, you get this. How many times do you have to fail?
As many times as it takes, and don't
to be able to get it ahead of time.
Don't judge the number. As many times as it takes, you're gonna hit the bottom. You know, when you get to a place where you're like, I'm done. Have you ever had a friend that you had fun with, but it always came with drama?
Yeah.
And it's high maintenance, and there comes a point where the high maintenance is more than you want. The friendship isn't worth it, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And it's sad because it's coming to a close, but there comes a point where you're like, I'm done. I'm literally done. I don't care if I'm bored and I'm going to the mall by myself and I don't have a girlfriend to go with me. I'm done.
And is this where you're saying that I have to trust that I'm going to get to that point where I want to jump off the cliff?
Yeah, where you're freaking done. This is where I was going with smoking cigarettes. You know, so many people can quit, but if they really don't want to, they'll always leave the door open. Mm-hmm. They'll always say, you know what? I'm going to quit, but if something ever happens, I'll allow myself to have a cigarette. So they're really not ready to let go. Mm-hmm. They know it's not healthy. They have a lot of profound reasons to quit. There's family, there's children that are asking them to quit, but they really don't want to let go of that moment that they needed emotionally, right? And then eventually, when it becomes intrinsic, when it's no longer about someone outside of themselves, where they're kind of grossed out by it, not physically, but emotionally. The fact that it's a crutch and it's and it's like, really, you kind of get to the point where it doesn't matter if the world is ending. It doesn't matter. You'll never touch a cigarette again. It's over. And you shut the door, you turn around. This is the divorce. I write about divorcing your relationship with food. You're getting to the point where that relationship, you're noticing, as much as you want it, you're starting to not like it anymore, and the pendulum is going to swing a little bit to the other side where you just can't stand it.
So this is,
and you're done.
Even, I think it's where the diet industry makes it seem, or it's appealing to people like us to lose it quickly.
Yeah, because you think it's your body though.
Right.
But now you're getting it's the relationship with food.
Right. And so still, I'm doubting myself because, darn it, why is this taking so long for me to accept this and just jump? But again, it's that mentality. This is going to take time. This has been since I've been in 8th grade. Mm-hmm. So this is going to take me time.
This is like a codependent relationship. Yeah. It's like someone who lives with an abuser. Okay. You know, you need that abuser because on some level you identify who you are with that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's become your pacifier, your whoopee, your blankie. And that blankie you've loved and caressed and it's been there for you. It's fulfilled you when something else hasn't. And it's so fulfilling because you emotionally can create what you need out of that. It's not like it's actually giving you anything, because you know food is an inanimate object. Not at all, but you create that. So you're the creator of it, not the food.
At what point then how do I? So
I am listening to you, but here's where you need to come to where you don't need it anymore. Because when you started eating emotionally, you had low self-esteem, right? You didn't really know who you were. Right. You were comparing yourself to other people. You felt bad about the way you looked, right?
Totally. And
on other, relationships in your life, you felt like you were insecure with those relationships, and food became the glue. Mm-hmm. It kind of glued you together so that you felt like you could manage.
Yeah.
And at this point, are you still living in that 12-year-old state of mind with insecurity? You're not. No. You're not. So if you could go back in your mind today and go back to that girl with what you feel today, how would you perceive things, and would you need food to glue you back together? So how much of what you're doing is just behavior that you just are holding on to because it saved you early on in your life, but you have self-worth today. And so it's not making as much sense to you today, and that's where that discontent is coming. Like, why? So your reaction with food actually sounds very passive. You are so ready.
Okay.
You just have to kind of come to that moment where you're like, oh my God, I'm ready. And this is where I tell people it doesn't take time. When you get to that point, it's like quitting smoking. It's like divorcing someone who's abusive to you and you've been enabling the whole time.
And that's where I've been expecting it. I didn't realize there was going to be this intense monthly journey ahead of time before I get to that point where you just can make that jump, if you will.
Yeah, you're just done. It's over. And you don't care. You could have, the worst thing happen to you ever, and you're never going to turn to food again because it just, you don't need it. It's not worth it anymore.
So do I continue after I'm recognizing, or when I recognize a binge or overeating? Do I continue naming whatever I was feeling at that moment? Like, do I continue that process so that I can say, Christy, you were feeling vulnerable at that point? Well, of course,
the fact that you're saying this tells me the next time you feel that way, you're going to already know ahead of time.
Okay.
You kind of, just by verbalizing this, you feel like you're kind of like, okay, now I'm getting it. The game, I can see the game approaching, and I'm ready to go.
Where it was never even visible for me before. I never, before coming here, I never ever knew. I knew there was something bigger than just the diet, like me joining whatever.
Well, you were always told it's your body's fault, and it's food's fault. So you obsessed about your body and food, and it never was put in your lap, and everything has been in your lap this whole time.
Right.
And by taking ownership of that, you can actually fix it at the level you need it to. I can't do that for you. All I can do is kind of point you in a different direction and say, hey, look, you really need to look at it from this view.
Yeah.
And the view is really like, holy crap, you really have to take it on, and that's where that awareness is happening for you, because I kind of exposed a new view.
You absolutely.
And after you have that view, it's kind of hard to go back.
Yeah.
It's like your body isn't hungry, so it's obvious when there's an emotional desire. And so for me, when I got to that point, there was no way other out. The only other out was that suicide. So I chose that if I'm not going to commit suicide, I might as well let myself feel that incredible pain and accept it and not judge it. That's so key, by the way, because if you're judging it, you're still trying to control. And so you have to just observe as if you're a scientist, observing.
Observe what the feeling. Like?
Yeah, and go and a lot of people say you just got to go through it. Well, that's like saying I need more self-constraint. Whatever. That's not what it is. True observation requires submission and allowance.
That it's okay. I'm feeling what I am right now.
And it's accepting the fact that you feel like you're going to die and you could potentially die. That's the emotional feeling. There's emotional death involved with that. And accepting that you are really allowing a false sense of yourself, which was food and eating, to die. It feels like death because you thought that's who you were on some level. So it's getting back to what I call authenticity. You're getting back to what's authentic. Before, you were that girl who ate to feel better about herself. That's really like letting that whole, I like to think of it as scaffolding that you've put all over around you to kind of stabilize your soul. You've literally put this concrete wall around you, and you thought that concrete wall was what was real of you.
Totally.
And basically what I'm saying is, here's a sledgehammer and just knock it down. But the way you do that is by letting yourself be exposed and accepting whatever the outcome is, because that's what's authentic. It's like jumping off a cliff and knowing that on the bottom you're accepting what the end is, that you're not going to control it, that you're going to let yourself feel,
just to feel,
as if you're committing emotional suicide and starting over. It's like you just need a do-over with what is authentic. And so you got to get to the point where you're like, you want to find that so bad that you're divorced. You've done. You've walked out the door. You packed your bags. You're no longer going to call for food for a one-night stand. You're no longer going to put call food to put a shoulder to cry on. Food is no longer going to be your best buddy to go do fun things with. It's over. That relationship is no longer worth it, and you'd much rather be alone and allow yourself to find creativity elsewhere.
And I can feel that brewing.
Yep.
And it's not there.
No, and it has to be your choice. And that's what you're kind of getting to, where it's now becoming a matter of choice, where you want it to be done.
I don't have those blinders on.
No, you're in process.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight until you're there at that moment where you don't want to smoke a cigarette, where it's your choice. You're not doing it for anybody else but you, and it's over, and you will never do it again. And that is a choice. So you're willing to withstand the your emotional desire. You know, when something goes wrong and you immediately go to wanting to smoke a cigarette or eat, you're like, no, I'm not going there. So I'm just going to have to reprocess this, rethink what's happening, you know. Who are you? That always comes down to, you know, let's just get back to what's real with you. And if you could do this over, would you continue to have that relationship with food? Would
Never.
You would never do it. So you need to focus on that right there, because that's what's going to get you to, I'm done. It's over. It's over. I can't bring you there. I can't get your mind there. It's kind of a personal thing. You really have to think about all the reasons why you use food for emotional reasons, and make the decision that there is no other option. There is no other. I will not do that. That's the bottom. Where it's done, over, moving on.
Okay.
You know, I write about this in my blog. You need to go read my blog.
I will read them. I started reading a couple weeks ago. I was reading a few of them, and they were hitting home with me, where it was just, okay, that's me. It's me.
And you're not alone. That's the thing.
Yes.
That how many people have the same exact perspective as you, and it's because we've been trained by the diet industry to look at it from only one view, which is your body sucks. The food you eat is making you vulnerable, so we're going to control your food, and we're going to make you obsess about your weight, so that's what you focus on, so that you need us.
What I will say has been
business. It has no integrity.
The biggest sense of relief for me has been no scale. I'm not living by that. So that has been, I have no problem not getting on the scale anymore to monitor anything. And the other thing has been where I have really easily gotten rid of I can have that. There is no off limits or on limits of food. There's no judgment for that. And so when you see some of these weight loss plans, especially come New Year's starting, about how you can do this, and then there's all of the weight loss brands out there that are out there, I've gotten to the point where I can kind of laugh at that, and I'm like, it's all in my head. There's nothing to do with the food of it. I have learned that it is really truly nothing with the food. It is me really truly not recognizing and listening to my body saying, stop, you've had enough, you're satisfied, wait until, put it down and wait until later. Yeah. And so that has been a relief for me, that has been outstanding, and I can put that aside, put that on the shelf. I don't need to even think of that stuff anymore. I am now dealing strictly with my brain and my emotions, and that has been, so I can separate that. I've never separated that before.
Isn't that incredible?
It's a relief.
Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, it's a relief.
Almost. It really makes you look at that industry with distaste. Yes. It's pretty pathetic.
It's pathetic that they're creating.
And you know what's happening within the HCG community. There's all sorts of people who have absolutely no education with physiology, and they use this protocol to make money for themselves.
Because it's a quick fix that somebody like me was looking for.
Correct. And it works. So they may have done it and it works, but they're going to make you think that you have to weigh every single day because that's your only way of motivation, right?
Right.
Because they have no idea that they have emotional eating disorders, and they are perpetuating it in other people.
Right.
It's insanity, and I say that all the time, but it is so insane, and it's just one way, if you can just see it from a different view, all of a sudden it's so obvious how shallow that mindset has been and how sabotaging it is to your own self, and you don't need it anymore.
When I did my homeopathic, I was supposed to be weighing every day, and I got obsessed, and so it was feeding my emotional eating disorder.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. It's a very huge
feeding it, and it was all based on that scale. And when I look back and I think now that if I didn't lose, a pound or even a half a pound or even, 0.2, if I didn't lose anything that day, I had felt failure. So throughout my 40-day process, I can't tell you how many times within that, though it was very, very successful for me, scale-wise, the defeat I felt significantly day in and day out because I wasn't losing a pound a day like they promised.
It almost makes you more psychotic. It
Absolutely.
I have seen people get whipped into major eating disorders with that type of mindset.
I wish you could tape people when you tell them, I don't want you getting on a scale, and tape their faces. Yeah.
What?
Because that's how I was.
Well, that's the control part.
Right.
That's why, and by letting go of the scale, you're basically saying it's my job to motivate myself.
Yeah.
That there's nothing else to get me to eat less. And that's, you realize that scale for so many people is, that scale is their protection.
Yeah. It was my protection.
From the demon of
failure.
And eating excessively.
Absolutely.
So if they don't have the scale, they feel like they're going to lose it. They don't trust their body because their emotional addiction to food is so intense that without the scale, they can't even go there.
And even when you had said to do with the very limited food plan that you're on, when you had said to me, you may not even eat that whole bit in one day because you're not hungry and you're listening to your body. That was so telling for me. I thought you were absolutely insane that I would not eat all of that food. And again, if I'm comparing the first time, it was one of those where I had this mentality of, it's on my plate, this is all I get, I've got to have it.
That's emotional.
Right.
Because you're thinking more is better emotionally.
Right. And I had never, ever listened to my body in terms of, are you full?
Yeah.
And then when this one was, so it has been an incredible journey for me.
Will you do me a favor so we can, I don't want to make this video too long, but I want you to, if you can make any recommendations to those people who are watching my YouTube videos, and most of them are doing it on their own, they have no help.
Yeah. Doing what on their own?
The HCG protocol.
Oh, yeah. Without help. It is incredibly helpful to talk with you.
I know that, but not everybody can talk to you, which is why I'm doing these videos.
Okay.
But if you could give them any insight into what helped you, and it might help someone, what could that be?
Just to listen to, I think the biggest thing that I keep going back to since I've started is listening to my body, and if I'm full, stop eating. And stop looking at the clock saying, oh, it's 12 o'clock, it's lunchtime, I gotta eat.
So trust your body.
Trust my body and forget everything else. And what's hard about that is being a mom when I'm cooking for dinner and, oh, my kids have to eat at 5 o'clock, and then I sit down at the table, but I've just filled my body to a point of satisfaction, and I'm sitting down and I want to sit down at the dinner table with everybody. So stop looking at the clock and use your body as what is it intended to do. It is intended to tell you when you've had enough. And if you really are listening to that, you should have all the success in the world.
Yeah, and trust it.
And trust it. And really and even, not even to begin eating, but while eating. It's the recognition of being very in the moment of while you're eating, thinking, okay, I've now hit that satisfaction mark, be done. And it's okay if I have a plate full.
Yeah, left. And allow yourself to have that anxiety.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's leave it at that.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
This is going to be very helpful for you, Bill.